Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we are less than 1 week away. In fact, this weekend is when the San Francisco 49ers kick off training camp in 2026. So going to be a lot more content coming your way. But today, as we still relish in the waiting moments prior to training camp, we got some business to take care of and some things to discuss because while there is some proven talent like Mike Evans and Christian Kirk, there's a lot of unproven talent in the receiver room, and that has brought forth conversations of a reunion with Deebo Samuel. We'll dive into where things started and where things currently stand with the former San Francisco 49er wideout, and if maybe, just maybe, he may be on his way back to the San Francisco 49ers. We'll also get into what Adam Schefter had to say on ESPN yesterday about De'Zhaun Stribling, the San Francisco 49ers 33rd overall pick, and interestingly enough, an NFC West rival that most people in the fan base would say have a better front office may have wanted Stribling, and some other teams may have called him the best receiver in the draft class, if you can believe that. It was a big statement, but here we are on July 21st. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave us that 5-star audio podcast review, and if you could on YouTube, give us a hype. Let's spread this video to other people, other Niner faithful like yourself. But let's put that aside for a second because we got some things to discuss, starting with Deebo Samuel. We have hinted at this. We have discussed this a couple of times, mainly when free agency had just began, present tense, past tense, beginning, current tense, happening, whatever. We discussed the potential of Deebo Samuel coming back to San Francisco before the team had signed Mike Evans and Christian Kirk. And at that point in time, I was against it. Said, nope, don't want it, don't want to do this. I don't want to have any retread on these tires. I don't want to run things back. It felt very much like Hunter Pence with the San Francisco Giants. You let him go because he's getting older and he's slowing down. He goes away and has a really good season or a good enough season to make you say, hey, maybe there's still some gas left in the tank. And they bring him back and he's terrible and he's cut before the midway point of the season. And now there's Deebo Samuel, almost in the exact same place, right? When he left, it wasn't on the greatest terms. It wasn't on the worst terms by any means. He wasn't, bashing Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch like his former receiver counterpart Brandon Ayuk is doing every single day on Instagram. But there was some social media stuff throughout the 2024 season. He was complaining about not getting the football enough. He was making things more about him than how bad the season had gone. And at that point in time, they agreed to mutually part ways via a trade to the, funny enough, Washington Commanders. But now here we are. After Deebo Samuel goes to Washington, has a nice season, a rebound type of year, and a terrible offense, not led by Jaden Daniels. And he does show signs of maybe not 2021 Deebo Samuel, but maybe an amalgamation of 2023 and a near 30-year-old Deebo Samuel. There was some good. There was a little more punch behind his hits or power behind his hits last season. And now a big reason why the discussion has come into light or to fruition is because on social media, Deebo Samuel looks to be in amazing shape. And you see Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle commenting on his Instagram, hey, there's a guest room in the house with your name on it. We got a guest house labeled Deebo Samuel. And you're seeing leaders of the team jokingly or lightheartedly advocating for Deebo to come back to San Francisco. But that leads us to the big question. With guys like Juice and Kittle saying on social media, come back to San Francisco, with Deebo Samuel at least looking like in the best shape of his career since maybe his contract dispute with the San Francisco 49ers a couple years ago. Would you, and I'm asking you here, tell me on social media, tell me in the YouTube comments, tell me on the podcast comments, would you want to re-sign Deebo Samuel? Would you want to bring him back and plug him in to the offense once again? While you're answering that yourself, I'm going to tell you what I think. That's what you came here for anyways, right? I do not think it's a good idea to sign Deebo Samuel. And I'll tell you why. And there's many reasons. One of them being, I don't want us to buy into the fallacy that this point in time of the offseason always brings. Well, this guy's in the best shape of his career. While that may be true, while Deebo may be humbled, he may be motivated after not being signed close to August, right? He feels like, what the heck's going on? Like, I'm Deebo Samuel. I don't have a contract yet. And that could be, a mental game for him. And he's trying to prove, unlike Brandon Ayuk, all things lead to Brandon Ayuk, as we've learned the last few months, that I am in shape. I'm posting videos. I want to get a contract. I want to play football. All that's great. But he is 30. And when a player like Deebo, and this was the conversation when he was in San Francisco of how long can this guy stay healthy? How long can this guy, who was a really good San Francisco 49er, maintain the level of play he's had? And you saw 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, there were, incremental drop-offs, and then they traded him away. And he was fine last year. A lot of people wanted to bring back Deebo Samuel in free agency earlier this offseason. But the age scares me. The other thing is that you got 7 guys in your receiver room that you're hoping make it really difficult to let go this offseason, right? You have Mike Evans. He's a guaranteed player on your roster, barring injury, right? You brought in Christian Kirk to kind of give you some cushion, give you some protection if players like Ricky Pearsall, who, if he's healthy, is making the roster no matter what, and De'Zhaun Stribling, if those are already 4 guys, those guys are guaranteed locks to make this roster. That is a Hall of Famer. That is a plug-and-play veteran. That is a first-round draft pick you're banking on in year 3, making big, big steps in his development. Then the guy you just took, 3 months ago. Those are 4 locks on your roster. That leaves 3 other guys, one of them being Demarcus Robinson, who was your best receiver, not named Juwan Jennings, in the playoffs last year on the road in Philadelphia against a really good Eagles defense. Now, Robinson, I think, was used rather poorly last year. He also is pretty inconsistent, but it's a guy like Christian Kirk that gives you some cushion on the off chance the other 2 guys alongside Robinson, meaning Jacob Cowling, coming into year 3, boomer bust year, either piss or get off the pot type of year for him, and Jordan Watkins, another guy who got the 2 years ago now that you think can be a field-stretching talent for you. What are you going to get? Right there is already 7 guys, 4 of them already locks, meaning probably 2 of those guys are fighting for those final, or 3 of those guys are fighting for those final 2 spots. San Francisco usually carries about 5 receivers throughout the year, and they have 1 practice squad guy just in case. That's been your Malik Turners the last couple of seasons. Your Ronnie Bells a couple of years ago, which, yikes. Nevertheless, if you plug Deebo Samuel into that room, now you have 8 guys vying for 5, if they want to push it, 6 roster spots. And I can make the case that if you put Deebo Samuel on this roster with a head coach, which we know this, that loves him in Kyle Shanahan, you are effectively telling Watkins, Cowing, Robinson that you're fighting for 1 job. And while that may be okay with you, I just don't know if now is the time to say, yep, we're putting our chips in the Deebo Samuel basket. The Niners have to get younger, right? The big knock on Mike Evans is the age thing. That's why you're hoping Stribling and Pearsall grow into them, hopefully their potential, and their ceiling really fast in 2026. Now, those things will take time, but you're banking on young guys stepping up because you realize Kittle's getting older off an injury, McCaffrey's getting older off an incredible season, but, a lot of touches. Trent Williams is nearing 40 in the next couple of years. How long is he going to last? You want to have your offense become more explosive. Can Deebo Samuel help that? Maybe for a year, but is it worth risking losing? Let's say Cowing plays great during preseason and training camp. Let's say Robinson, Cowing, and Watkins all play great in preseason and training camp, and you're like, crap, we don't just have a log jam. We have nowhere to maneuver. And you're cutting Cowing, he gets picked up by somebody else. You cut Watkins, hoping, God, I hope he can get to the practice squad, and he gets claimed by somebody else. And you had Demarcus Robinson, who, of the bunch, is the one guy you're probably sitting back like, we can afford to let that guy go, hopefully via a trade of somebody else needs a wide receiver. But do you want to do that to your team? And along those lines, you got young receivers. I've already mentioned the crop of young guys you're banking on playing good football for you this year. Pearsall, Stribling, Cowing, Watkins, those four guys. You put Deebo on this team. Let's say it's a one-year deal. Vet men, money isn't a big worry for me in this case. It's more of Deebo taking away the opportunity of young players. You need to know if they can do it or not. Now, you can say, well, Sterling, what does plugging Deebo in? What does signing Deebo have to do with the reps Cowing gets, the reps Watkins gets? You got 7 guys already, and you have 2 undrafted free agents, right? You have a couple more guys on your roster, too. You can't field 10 wide receivers when you already know 4 of those guys are locks. Like, Stribling needs to get reps to not just acclimate himself to the NFL, but alongside Brock Purdy, gain some chemistry, learn the playbook. Ricky Pearsall, the chemistry there at Purdy, but you got to stay healthy for a full offseason first. Maybe that's the reason why you are pro signing Deebo, but that's the reason why I'm like, you got to prove to me you can be healthy from August to September, and then so on and so forth before I say, we got to bring in Deebo Samuel. I want to see Pearsall play. He's in no position to be like, I can take a day off. You got to earn that, buddy, and you haven't just yet, and he knows that. Then there's Watkins and Cowing. Cowing has proven nothing over the last 2 years. He didn't play all but no snaps last season at all, and he played like 10 the year prior, and Watkins played in, I believe, like 3 games last season and caught 1 football. All 4 of those guys got to be out there every single day at practice. Mike Evans will get days off. Christian Kirk probably gets a day or 2 off throughout the offseason program and training camp and preseason, but Pearsall, Stribling, all those guys got to play. And can the Niners afford to have 3 veteran wide receivers on the sideline during the preseason? 3 guys who you're giving days off to? Maybe, but you're almost admitting to yourself that guy doesn't need the reps. That guy's already a lock for the roster, and I love Deebo. You know that. I love everything Deebo Samuel has meant to the 49ers in the Kyle Shanahan era. But on top of all the other things we've already discussed, do we know what Deebo Samuel we're getting? He might be motivated. That's fine. He might be in the best shape of his life. That's fine. But he's 30. You saw the slow drip fall off for a guy that, maybe he can give you 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. Maybe he brings some of that, wide back versatility still. But last time I checked, that stuff wasn't working 2 years ago. Why is it going to work in 2026? That stuff wasn't working to its full potential in 2023, outside of like an 8-game stretch in the middle part of the season. It's the same guy who couldn't get open in a Super Bowl, and now with the aspirations the team has, you want to bring that guy back? You can make the case that San Francisco, rightfully so, even before trading Deebo, was mentally moving off of him. And now you have Brock Purdy in this offense, which has turned into more of a drop-back passing game where Deebo Samuel can work, but it's not going to be, at least in my opinion, worth the squeeze of potentially pushing younger guys off the roster, giving Deebo Samuel a spot. And let's say you get into the year and Deebo Samuel and the drop back passing game aren't really gelling. He was here 2 years ago and he complained about not getting the ball. Well, at that point in time, it was I got a hurt Brandon Ayuk off the roster and Christian McCaffrey's off the roster. The dude was sharing reps with George Kittle and Jordan Mason and Jawan Jennings and was complaining then. You don't think with Mike Evans and at least right now a healthy Christian McCaffrey returning George Kittle and then two young pups in Stribling and Pearsall that Deebo Samuel is option number 4? Option number 5? He certainly isn't option number 1, and he isn't number 2. So at best, he's number 3, and I can even make the case that, once Kittle comes back, he's 4. Evans, McCaffrey, and Kittle, then Deebo. And I don't know if San Francisco in this offense really fits Deebo Samuel in 2026. They moved off of the wide back stuff. They wanted to trade him away to get Ayuk and Pearsall, these, separating youthful receivers that can beat anybody, right? And that hasn't worked out for a lot of reasons, but there'd almost be a reversion back to somewhat of this offense that wasn't working in 2024. And I'm sure there'd be a little difference, right? You'd see this offense look a little better because the personnel is so much better now, at least on paper, than it was then. They're healthier now than they were then, but this feels more like a vibes move. And Emmanuel Acho called Deebo Samuel a glorified mascot. And I think that's ridiculous. That's like disrespectful. But I think what Acho was getting at was you don't sign players for vibes. You can do that with Trent Taylor, who you know is going to be on injured reserve the whole year and make a couple guys happy. Whatever. You can do that with, the 6th cornerback on your roster, a la Jontae Johnson for about a decade and a half in San Francisco, right? You can't do that with Deebo Samuel, who has the name value, the recognition, former All-Pro, been to 2 Super Bowls, and still believes he can contribute. At what level? I don't know, but I'd like to believe Deebo, knowing the person he is going to want to prove that I can still be receiver number 1, receiver number 2, and I don't know if San Francisco can afford him the opportunity to be that. And I don't know if this marriage is worth rekindling. You already separated. That was for good. Now, that doesn't mean Deebo can't go elsewhere and be a great football player. That doesn't mean that the memories of Deebo Samuel rocking the 19 and the number 1 in San Francisco won't always be good. As a fan, I'm sure you as well, you'll think of Deebo Samuel in the best possible light. 2021 was magical. He changed the way offenses wanted to, utilize their wide receivers. Him and Shanahan did. And everybody for a long time was trying to find the next Deebo, and nobody has. And, that is worthy of praise, worthy of recognition. But in 2026, what is the expectation? Because my thought is you'll get 30 receptions, 50 touches maybe at most. And I think you're right back to where you were in 2024, a player that, maybe the vibes are high and he's feeling good, but, is Deebo Samuel okay playing a Kendrick Bourne type role where maybe a couple games he pops off? Wow, look at KB, look at Deebo in 2025, right? Look at Deebo in 2026 now. Like these small spurts of he had 8 catches for 85 yards and 2 tutties. But then he disappears for 3 catches and 15 yards the next month. I don't think Deebo is okay doing that, and that's where I think he'd be at in San Francisco now in 2026. Love Deebo. Love the player. Love the person. I think Deebo is a phenomenal advocate, a phenomenal ambassador for the San Francisco 49ers, but this feels like if I'm trying to read the tea leaves, I don't know if this is – I think Deebo's camp probably put out feelers. I think Deebo's camp probably said, go back to San Francisco, right? You liked it there. Feels like home. Kyle will treat you right. He'll do best by you, even if it isn't exactly what you want. You know, this is probably the twilight of his career. I'm assuming Deebo's not going to last, through his age 33 season. I hope he does, but a player like him, they usually don't last very long. And I think he's nearing the end of the road. I think he believes he can get one more contract or maximize himself next year, then get one more contract for 2 or 3 seasons, and then, go off in the sunset. But even if you get a motivated Deebo Samuel, he's your fourth option receiver, 8 on your roster. And I think it's doing, while not purposefully, more damage than you would just letting him sign elsewhere. Let him go elsewhere. And so I'm not pro Deebo. I'm pro Deebo. It's not pro signing Deebo. And I think that this is probably Deebo Samuel's camp putting out feelers. Hey, come back to San Francisco. But it'll be nice, Kyle. Remember what we had. How could you forget me? And the Niners are like, we have Mike Evans, man. We have Pearsall. We have Stribling. Like, the Niners had every opportunity to bring back Deebo Samuel this offseason. They could have signed him pre-Mike Evans edition, pre-Christian Kirk edition. That was twice. And they went and drafted a receiver essentially in round 1 with the first pick in round 2. Like, they added 3 receivers, 2 of them being Mike Evans and essentially a first-round draft pick in Stribling. And so that tells me at least everything I need to know about how they view him as a player now. And there's a reason why he's a free agent still. Like, Joey Bosa would have been signed by now had he not gotten married and been golfing and retired, basically. Deebo Samuel is a different story. 32 teams have not signed Deebo Samuel. That's not because of a contract issue, not because of a personality issue. It's just a fit, and it's age, and we don't know how long you can do this for. And a 1-year flyer in San Francisco, theoretically, doesn't hurt anything. I got Deebo on the wall right here, rocking the 1 next to Purdy and McCaffrey. I love the dude, but it just doesn't feel like the fit is right. Deebo reminds me of the guy in like a different way, but in around like a similar. I view him similar. Like, Frank Gore is the Niners' all-time leading rusher, right? We all love Frank. He's awesome, right? Frank Gore played for the Jets, the Bills. Like, he was gone for a long time. And he reached the pinnacle of his career, meaning he got the rushing record for number 3 all time elsewhere. And it sucks and it stings, but he'll always be a San Francisco 49er. Deebo Samuel's in the same vein. You can go play for Washington, and you can go play for the Bengals or the Jets, or go to Buffalo, follow the Frank Gore path for all I care. But you'll always be a San Francisco 49er. When people think of Deebo Samuel, they'll think of the wide back 2021, 2023, 2 Super Bowls, and what he did in the NFL for the 49ers, not for other teams. No one thinks of Frank Gore as a Jet or a Bill. I think of Frank Gore as a San Francisco 49er because he's one of the greatest San Francisco 49ers of all time. In my opinion, he's the greatest running back ever in San Francisco history. While Deebo is not going to be that when it comes to receivers in San Francisco, that's Rice and Owens, other guys ahead of him. Deebo's the best receiver this team has had since like 2005, 2003, whenever Owens left. And that's not going to change. That's 20 plus years of history in San Francisco that Deebo Samuel etched his name into. It's 2 decades that he made himself the top dog of that era. Now, he didn't play for 20 years, obviously, but my point is, like, Deebo's always going to be a 49er. That doesn't mean you always have to play for the San Francisco 49ers. If he was still productive, if he was still like Kittle and McCaffrey and clearly was, one of the better guys at his position, then we'd be having a whole different conversation. But there, to me, would be a blockade of the youth. I'm concerned about what the Niners can offer him and what he can offer San Francisco. I think he wants to be a 49er. I think, if someone gets hurt and he's out there, let's say Christian Kirk gets hurt and it's really serious, or Demarcus Robinson goes down. Okay, that's we have a different scenario at hand. But right now, on July 21st, pre-training camp, preseason, I got a bunch of young pups. I'm like, you got to get out there and prove it. Like, you got, again, You got to piss or get off the pot. And Deebo Samuel, unfortunately, will be on the pot in front of them, blocking them from getting a chance to piss. And I don't know, when you got to go, you got to go. And I don't want my dudes getting blocked by Deebo Samuel, but it's all of the Deebo. But what do you think? Would you want San Francisco to bring back Deebo Samuel? It'd be pretty ironic knowing that Ayuk is still here, albeit absent and maybe gone by this point in time next month or when the season begins. But it'd be pretty funny to watch their career paths of we're gonna let Deebo go and we're gonna usher in the era of Ayuk. Holy crap, what a disaster. Deebo Samuel, come on down, come on back. But I think San Francisco's better off having neither of them on their roster anytime soon and in the future whatsoever, unless in Deebo's case, something injury-wise happens and changes the outcome. Like let's say Mike Evans goes down and he does something terrible, knock on wood, I hope it doesn't happen. But if that happens, okay, Deebo, welcome back to San Francisco. But we're not there yet, and hopefully we never get there. But what do you want to do with Deebo Samuel? You're hearing the talk, the reunion stuff. Do you want to bring him back? I don't think so. It's not 2021 anymore. What do you have to offer San Francisco? I just don't think there's much juice left to squeeze out of the peach, out of the orange. And I think it's starting to dry up. Maybe a little bit here or there, but I don't think it's enough to say I want to buy you for $3 million, $5 million, $8 million, and that carryover cap matters big time. And I don't know what Deebo Samuel values himself at to even warrant having the discussion inside the building of, hey Kyle, what about Deebo? But drop your thoughts down below. What do you think? Should San Francisco bring back Deebo? Are you saying Sterling? It's all vibes, man. Get the band back together. Not Ayuk, that guy's gone, but get everybody else back together in San Francisco. Let's have some fun. Or you're like, no, Sterling, you're right. Let's table the talks until something drastic happens in the future. That said, that is not the only receiver topic on today's show, because when the San Francisco 49ers drafted Ole Miss wide receiver De'Zhaun Stribling at pick 33 in this past year's draft, there was a little, criticism is a light word to say. Some people were angry. Some people were like, who is this guy? I don't know who this guy is. And I think that's what leads to ignorant draft takes. But that is to say, you can have your opinion, but a lot of it was that's not the best player on the board, and you have other needs like safety, maybe edge, and whatnot, and not knowing at the point in time who San Francisco was going to take afterwards. I think when you leave the draft, you're pretty happy with who they got for the most part. People thought it was a reach, terrible pick, could have had it at pick 50 and 60 and whatever. The consensus said this is bad. Thus, it is bad. And sometimes the consensus is right. Sometimes they nail it on the head. However, if consensus was right, Ryan Leaf, Hall of Famer, Jamarcus Russell, Hall of Famer, Brock Purdy gets cut in training camp his first year. Raheem Mostert never makes the Niners roster as a, practice squad UDFA talent. Right? And that doesn't always mean it's wrong either. It just means that there are holes in the consensus. And I think as we have learned, especially in this year's draft class, which reminder, did not have a ton of blue chip talent. Thus, you did see teams reach for guys they believed fit their offense, their defense, their system that they thought were not going to be there the next time they picked. That's where I think De'Zhaun Stribling comes into play. You let Juwan Jennings go. You need a run blocking, maybe rusty with the routes, but an explosive athlete as a wide receiver, gauge of 4.3 speed, can get open downfield and smack the crap out of guys with the ball in his hands. Another reason why you don't want to bring in Deebo Samuel. You have Stribling. Let him do the Deebo Samuel thing if you want him to. But a lot of the Stribling discussion has been negative. And I think there's been a little bit of change over time. The more you've heard from him, the where you've heard that, well, he was flying up draft boards early on day 2 and late on day 1, and San Francisco took him. Now, the undertones of the discussion are like, well, San Francisco's had a pretty bad history in recent seasons drafting, and it seems like it did it again. No, this is Pearsall. This is, Jair Brown and Cam Latu all over. And while those things can still happen, I'm of the mindset that he hasn't played a single snap yet. Let's see what happens. He could be horrible. He could also be fantastic. And you're not going to see that for about 1 to 2 years, right? First impressions mean a lot, but they aren't everything, right? I often think about this. Oftentimes you get one chance to meet people in your lifetime. Well, if you're a dick that one time, they think you're always a dick. But you could have had a bad day at work. It could have been fighting with the wife. And it's like, oh, that was out of my character. I'm sorry. And had they met you and known you longer, oh, guy's not too bad. A girl's not too bad. Okay. But sometimes the first impression is all you get. And thankfully for Stribling, it's not going to be that. But until then, until the first impression even happens, because we haven't seen these dudes play yet, all we have is the hearsay, the reporting, the college film and tape, and will they, won't they, who they, will they, are they good, are they bad, and all this kind of rhetoric of guys you like, guys you don't like, guys you believe in, people in the offseason searching for clicks left and right of like, I got to write 5 articles to make my weekly, and De'Zhaun Stribling stinks one week and he's good the next one. Trust me, it happens a lot. I've been doing it for a long time. It happens all the time. But Adam Schefter today, or yesterday on ESPN, dropped, I think, maybe one of the best tidbits of information we've got on De'Zhaun Stribling in maybe the entire offseason, because we're still trying to figure out who this dude is. It's like, wait a minute, who are you? And Schefter today dropped some news on ESPN, and we're going to play it for you right here on the show because it does give insight or further insight into what other teams were thinking before San Francisco drafted Stribling at pick 33 overall.
Well, see, what's interesting about this selection is there were some people that wondered if it was too early for De'Zhaun Stribling to go. And yet there were a couple of teams that I spoke to in the draft process leading up to the draft that felt like De'Zhaun Stribling was the best wide receiver in the draft. Another team, supposedly the Los Angeles Rams, had eyes on him. And so the 49ers didn't just come up with this pick out of nowhere. They knew that there were other teams that had a very high grade on Stribling when the 49ers declined to trade out of the top draft slot in the second round and take him there. And Mina, you mentioned the combination of older injured players and younger wide receivers. Mike Evans and Christian Kirk, both with points to prove in San Francisco. Former first-round draft pick Ricky Pearsall, and now De'Zhaun Stribling. So there is an interesting blend of youth and experience there in San Francisco.
Oh, that's interesting.
Look, Schefter, I think, that tells me everything I need to know. Because one, the draft is a crapshoot. But now that we've heard multiple times from a lot of people inside ESPN, inside San Francisco's own war room, that they believed that Stribling was going to go higher than the consensus believed or thought. And now we've heard from Schefter that a couple of unknown teams thought that dude was the best guy in the draft. Now, I think if you asked the majority of people, you'd have Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate, but a lot of teams, maybe that are rebuilding or think potential and would put gold stars, gold helmets next to the guy they think, this dude may not be the best now, but potential-wise, it can exceed everybody else. That could be Stribling. And who are those teams? I don't know. But if, let's say it's just 3 teams, if 3 other teams that were picking immediately after San Francisco said that guy's best receiver in the draft, we're taking him. Now, clearly that wasn't Philadelphia. That wasn't the Titans. That wasn't the Jets. That wasn't the Browns. But that doesn't mean there weren't other teams behind San Francisco that said, man, if this guy passes in San Francisco, he's ours. And if the Niners view that player on equal footing to those teams and said, this guy, maybe he isn't the most refined right now because he's not. The routes aren't there yet. But he could be our, on our board, receiver 2, receiver 3. Okay, like I'm of the belief that San Francisco probably had Mekhi Lemon and Casey Concepcion up there. They didn't let go Mark Cooper Jr. enough, obviously. They traded back to not take that guy. But it was Concepcion, it was Lemon, and it was Carnell Tate off the board in front of him. So San Francisco at least believes Stribling was, at best, a third receiver on their board. If you want to put Tate there, he's the fourth guy. Like, it's not hard to fathom a different team or teams think, well, Lemon's got some character concerns. He's kind of an odd puppy. He's kind of an odd dude. Carnell Tate, there's some injury history there. Maybe he doesn't fit what we need offensively. Then Concepcion, smaller guy, he had some drops. Bang, you're right there on the doorstep of taking Stribling. And so when I think you hear that and you put the context together, that in itself at least justifies that pick a little more in my mind. But then the other part of this is that we will sit back, including myself, and praise what Sean McVay and Les Snead do in Los Angeles, right? Myles Garrett's now, a Ram in a big trade with Jared Verse and some first-round draft picks, right? They also, they brought in Matthew Stafford in 2021. They, drafted well to get Puka Nacua, and they got Cooper Kupp a while back, and they brought in Devontae Adams, and they rebuilt the offensive line, and they found Kyron Williams, and they have a really good defense now. Like, that's a really good S-tier front office out there in Los Angeles, right? I think it's one that oftentimes fans with the 49ers will say they walk laps around the 49ers, and I wouldn't even disagree there. But according to Schefter, the Rams wanted, or at least were keen on drafting Stribling. Now, they didn't pick till pick 60. So it was a while. Now, that doesn't mean they couldn't trade up. It doesn't mean that they weren't trying to trade up. It doesn't mean that they weren't working the phones. We all know this. Usually between day 1 and day 2, that entire night, an entire day, leading up to the first pick of the second round, phones are getting picked up nonstop. Teams are trying to move up, trying to make trades, and I wouldn't put it past the Rams that from pick 60, trading a player, trading something else, some future picks, maybe even picks in this past year's draft class. Let's get up into the 50s. Let's get into the 40s. Let's try to steal a guy we like a lot and hope he falls, right? That happens all the time too. Like, just because a player falls doesn't necessarily mean that, they're bad, right? A lot of people loved Emmanuel McNeil-Warren this past year. That dude fell forever. He was a late first-round consensus pick. That dude was, it felt like he was just tumbling down the steps of the draft class of like, oh my God, what happened to EMW out of nowhere? Denzel Boston fell to like mid to early second round. It was like, what's going on for a guy that you believed was a first round talent? So even as Stribling fell, let's say to the Rams at 60, how would you view that pick by the Rams at 60 if they got Stribling? Would you go, wow, what a great pick? Because of the team you went to? Because of the front office he was picked by? Like, and this isn't the crazy thing. We often look at competent ownership groups, competent front offices, and go, whatever they do, I trust it a heck of a lot more than bad ones. In San Francisco, the past couple of years have not been great when it comes to drafting. So just out of, like, out of just blatant evidence in front of you, you're probably going to trust Philadelphia and the Rams and other teams that draft the Packers at times really well, where San Francisco doesn't, or at least hasn't in recent seasons. That doesn't mean they don't hit on picks. In San Francisco's worst draft ever, they found Brock Purdy. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at here, is that don't let the front office or recent trends in the front office, even if they're bad, and in San Francisco, they've not been great, don't make that cloud your judgment on a player. San Francisco has done a pretty good job developing prospects that hit, right? 2019 was great. 2020 had some hits. Ayuk was in that class. McKivitz was in that class. Dwayne Jennings was in that class. Like, they've done a good job. In recent years, hasn't been great, admittedly so. But if you just swapped, let's say this, if you swapped the Niners and Rams picks, 33 and 60, and the Rams picked him, would the outcry be as negative, or would it have been as negative on draft night? I don't think so. And people didn't love the Ty Simpson pick. Now all of a sudden, he can sit for a couple years and learn the offense. I couldn't think of a better place for a quarterback to sit for 3 seasons behind Matthew Stafford. Wow, LA, great job. That same thing applies to Stribling. That this guy's probably not going to play, if Pearsall starts and Evans is out there, and we'll see how he implements himself into the offense. He'll certainly get an opportunity. But we know Kyle's hard on receivers, and we'll see how things work itself out. No block, no rock. This guy can block, and if that translates, then, we'll be in good footing. But if Stribling doesn't play a lot in year one, but like other guys, starts to grow and turns into something, wow. We're going to sit back in a couple years and go, thank God you skipped on Omar Cooper Jr. Because that'll be an often, pretty, that comparison will be made a lot because they traded back to not take him with the Jets. So I just think that when you hear Schefter saying a lot of teams, or some teams, had Stribling as a receiver 1 and the Rams liked him a lot, that's a couple teams having this dude above what many believe to be blue chip prospects in Tate and Lemon, and other guys that were at least in that next tier of Concepcion and Cooper Jr., guys that I liked a lot too, had it ahead of all those guys. Then you have the Rams, one of the most prolific and maybe trusted front offices in all football, that were like, we like that guy a lot. We want to get that guy. But the Niners do it, and it's a bad thing. So I think time will tell. Like, I hate to repeat that phrase often with draft prospects, but we don't know. We think we know. We hope we know. We hope when you come and watch the content that our analysis and our scouting reports are correct. We love being right. Everyone likes being right in the NFL draft community, in the NFL community. I like it. You like it. Your friends like it. Like, we all like it. But it's when you start hating on prospects and don't give these guys a fair chance. Like, I walk into every training camp, every draft season, every preseason saying, show me what you got. College means nothing as soon as you put the NFL helmet on. Show me what you got. It's why Brock Purdy was so good. It's why he's become the player he is. And that's part of his story. He left Iowa behind and said, I want to play NFL football, and I'm going to give me Garoppolo who, Trey Lance who, draft status who. And that's a crazy story. We all know this by now. But Stribling, it's not like he's not going to get a chance. Maybe limitations there because of Shanahan and the offense. But I think solidifying your stance on a prospect is ridiculous enough on night 1 of the draft, night 2 of the draft, or night 3 of the draft. But then to keep that stance after we continually hear, well, this team liked him a lot and that team liked him a lot, and he wasn't going to be there at 50. He wasn't going to be there at 60. Now we're seeing other teams have him be the number 1 wideout on their board, and the Rams liked him a lot. We'll see Stribling play this weekend and as the training camp sessions go forward. You got to prove it. But I think everything we've heard since draft night should at least be perking your ears up to potentially changing your tune on the negative stances people had. I'm not saying he'll be great. I'm not saying he'll even be good. But the condemnation of a 25-year-old, 24-year-old man out of college because, he picked a player I liked. I just saw Obsession, and it's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Fantastic movie, by the way. It's on Peacock. If you got it, watch it. It's the best movie of the year. It's fantastic. But to link those two things together, I'm getting an obsession with De'Zhaun Stribling. I'm going to be, well, that sounds creepy. I'm not going to say that. But my one wish, Willow, is that Stribling is a superstar wide receiver. If I had one now, it'd be, I wish De'Zhaun Stribling was the best receiver in football and won a Super Bowl. Crunch, snap, broken, and then bang, here we go. Like, that's my hope. That's my wish. And I think the more good we hear, the more positive the overall thought continues to trend in Stribling's case. And I hope that continues once we see him play football in the near future as training camp begins this weekend. Cannot wait to watch him play. Cannot wait to see if you hit the like button on the YouTube channel. And if you can, leave us that 5-star audio podcast review, even if it's one word that says Deebo, Stribling, Obsession. Drop your thoughts in the comments on YouTube. Drop your thoughts in the comments on the podcasting platforms. Leave us that review. Help us reach new ears as we begin another new season of content on 49ers Access. You can follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And you can use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. If you want to watch Deebo Samuel maybe play again for the San Francisco 49ers or even see Stribling live and in person this season, use that promo code 49ersaccess to save yourself $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com and enjoy some Niner tickets on me. Things are expensive still. Gas is crazy. Beer, food, it's all outrageous. If you can save yourself $20, that's where some value is. And even tickets are crazy, man. Everything's so expensive, but a discount is a discount nevertheless. But look, that's all I have for you today. I cannot wait to talk to you guys soon. Hoping to release some training camp bold predictions, some hot takes before things kick off this weekend. But until then, my name is Sterling Bennett. And as always, until next time, stay faithful.